Good evening, Sigma Chi brothers, sweethearts, and guests. Welcome to the Signature Series event in honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, brought to you by the Sigma Chi Learning Consortium. My name is Andrew Cross, and I am an alumnus of the Iota Omicron chapter at Western Illinois University and the alumnus member at large representative to the Executive Committee. Sigma Chi International Fraternity is committed and proud to provide our brothers, sweethearts, friends, and community members with the necessary support in their mental health journeys. Tonight, I have the distinct honor of introducing our guest speakers who are doing such important work in this space with mental health awareness, education, and advocacy. We are joined by brothers Michael Zibilich and Alex Lindley, who will share their inspiring stories with us tonight. Please be aware that this conversation will include sensitive topics, including discussions about suicide. Michael Zibilich, good evening.
Good evening very much, Andrew. And thank you again for that most kind introduction. And I want to
let me read the full one I got for you here.
I beg your pardon?
I'm going to give you the full intro here.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right. Michael is a commercial real estate executive who resides with his wife, Gail, in Atlanta, Georgia. Tragically, on April 21st, 2012, they lost their only child, Michael Keller Zibilich, a second semester Sigma Chi freshman at LSU, to suicide. Devastated by this inexplicable loss, they have dedicated their time and resources to promoting suicide education and awareness to college students throughout America. With the help of family and friends, they partnered with the Sigma Chi Foundation to create the Keller Zibilich Fund and the Keller Zibilich Sigma Chi Lifeline program, both a suicide prevention hotline and an in-depth suicide education and prevention curriculum, Strong Arms, for all active Sigma Chi's across the nation. Over the last 4 years, Michael has spoken about suicide awareness to thousands of university students throughout the United States. His message is simple. In the fight against suicide, all of us must consider ourselves first responders in our own lives and in the lives of those we know and love.
Thank you very much,
Welcome,
Andrew.
Michael.
I appreciate that kind introduction, and it's a pleasure and honor to speak to you tonight. It has been an interesting journey the last 12 years, and I'd like to begin by saying I am so very, very proud to be a Sigma Chi. I'm actually a legacy Sigma Chi, and I became a Sigma Chi in 2014 at the insistence of Keller's brothers after his death in 2012. And I am quite proud to be a member of what I believe is the finest fraternal organization in the United States, and a fraternal organization that I think is extremely interested in the health and well-being of its members and brothers. It's been quite a journey, as I said earlier. Keller, our only son, was born in 1993 and entered LSU in 2011. An incredible young man, gifted athlete, smart kid. First year at LSU was an absolutely amazing success, carried a 3.5 GPA, was the president of his Gamma Iota Sigma Chi pledge class, was the only freshman on the Interfraternity Council at LSU, was in the United States Marine Corps Platoon Leaders class. Just an absolutely phenomenal kid, great athlete, but most importantly, a wonderful, loving son to his father and mother. Suicide, something that my wife and I knew almost nothing of, frankly, besides popular culture. We had never known anyone in our own family that had been touched by this dreadful situation, nor any of our friends, was the last thing on our mind when we sent to LSU. And frankly, for all who knew and loved him from his grade school through high school and college days, he was the literal last person on earth that could be touched by this most dreadful and enigmatic manner of death. But we've learned a lot since he's died, and we have dedicated the last 12 years of our life to bringing suicide awareness and prevention to young college students and high school students across the United States. The journey began very quickly after his death when his brothers at the at his chapter at LSU, raised $25,000 to help create a suicide 1-800 number. Keller, before he died, made 5 unsuccessful attempts to call hospitals to help him with his plight. So the 1-800 number was an attempt by both the fraternity. We partnered with the Jed Foundation to give some substance to a number that would allow our members to get in touch with someone in time of need. That initial beginning changed very dramatically over the next couple of years, and the Zibilich family and friends partnered with the Sigma Chi Foundation in a much, much, much broader initiative. And that initiative covered many, many different factors. We wanted to create a scholarship in perpetuity to honor Keller, but most importantly, to bring attention to suicide by means of introducing a young man each year or several young men to the absolute necessity of mental health and suicide awareness. We wanted to do that very, very, very significantly. And we wanted to also fund several initiatives that Sigma Chi was interested in. The Strong Arms program, which is, of course, a program that all young freshmen that are inducted into Sigma Chi are required to take, and also the Reach Out program. From these very humble beginnings, we moved on to other areas in our life. I am now a national speaker for Active Minds, one of the largest organizations in the country that deal with suicide on American campuses. So we have endeavored in the best way possible to spend our time trying to make a difference. And the speaker that's going to follow me, who has become like an adopted son, Alex Lindley, approached us 5 or 6 years ago about a suicide documentary dealing with suicide. He had lost one of his, or several of his best friends at the University of Missouri. And we most assuredly agreed to be part of that project, Project Wake Up, and to have Keller's story along with multiple other stories told. Since that time, my wife and I have spoken at over 130 campuses around the United States. And as the introduction said earlier, our main goal is to make each and every one of our young men a first responder in their own lives and the guys that they live with and the people that they know and love in their families. And that message is very, very clear. We have a real hideous problem in this country. At present, we lose over 50,000 human beings a year to suicide, and over 12 to 1,300 young men and women die on our campuses. And unfortunately, as it relates to males, almost 80% of all suicides are males. So it's a very, very heartfelt situation that we're trying to do. We're trying to reach into Greek life, into overall campus understanding of how important it is to keep a very, very strong mental health situation in your own lives. My message simply when I speak around the United States is really basic threefold. And when I speak, I emphasize 3 basic things: that your mental health is absolutely as important as your physical health. This is something that, frankly, prior to Keller going to LSU and his unfortunate death, that we really didn't think a lot of. Number 2, we try to tell them that it is not a sign of weakness to ask for help or to talk about your problems. I know it's very difficult for men to talk about problems, but this is an essential ingredient to have an ability to be able to help yourself or help someone else in times of need. And the third thing we try to emphasize, most significantly as well, is that, mental health problems, disorders, or challenges are treatable. You can get help. There is life, there is hope. So those messages we try to get to the college students that we speak online, and try to get them to understand that reaching out is the thing that can help, save their lives and preserve their life. It has been an interesting journey for us. We've been able to meet an astonishing number of people in this field. There's a lot of work to be done. The stigma of suicide, although changing somewhat, is still very much there. There's been a lot of effort by our own fraternity, by fraternities and sororities across America, by the mental health community to reach down into high schools and to colleges to try to make a difference. But it's something that we've got to do a much better job on. There's been a lot of resources done and put into this particular field, but there's a lot more work to be done. And, we're trying to broaden the scope of this and make mental health awareness not something that we talk about once a year at a given month or at a fraternity one time we have a speaker come in. This needs to be a part of our daily life and these young men. And when I speak to them, I try to present to them that the most important grade you can get in college is your own mental health. It is absolutely important for you to maintain that balance and to look for signs of stress and anxiety within yourself and with your brothers. The first line of defense is all of us. The brotherhood of Sigma Chi, the brotherhood of any organization, the familial touches, the friendship touches are the things that can make the most difference in saving someone. The first line of defense is always the people that are in front of you. They see your actions. Keller had a very, very, very difficult time in only the last 48 hours of his life. Gail and I had traveled to Louisiana to attend a wedding, and Keller was to meet us in several hours. We were delivering his favorite possessions in life, his car and his kayak. He had spoken to his mother literally that morning and promised her the first dance at the wedding reception. 1.5 hours later, he was gone in his dormitory room. He left, no note. He gave absolutely no reason. Keller had had a very serious issue with his girlfriend that we subsequently found out that had happened 36 hours before. And it caused acute anxiety and depression, the two major sources of suicide. He knew what predicament he was in. He attempted to call 5 different hospitals, as I alluded to earlier, but to no avail. And unfortunately, he lost his last chance for life. We're here to call all of us to be aware of what is happening in our own mental health situations and in the people that we know and love around us. And I'm extremely fortunate to be able to go around the country and meet so many people that are dedicated to doing this. And I'm extremely proud of the Sigma Chi Foundation and the Sigma Chi Fraternity for emphasizing this over the last 12 years. It is an important part of our fraternity. The safety of our young men is absolutely paramount. And we are dedicated to try to continue those efforts in any way, shape, or form that we can do to help. And we're proud to be a part of this initiative and proud to be a continued part of doing anything that can keep our young men safe and, most importantly, alive.
Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Next, Alex Lindley. By his 22nd birthday, Alex Lindley had already delivered 2 eulogies, both for his best friends who tragically died by suicide while attending the University of Missouri. Grieving and looking for a way to convert the painful bereavement into a hopeful and passionate mission to save lives, Alex Lindley founded Project Wake Up in 2014. Lindley, now an attorney in St. Louis, Missouri, spent the better part of 5 years raising funds to produce Wake Up, stories from the front lines of suicide prevention, a labor of love in honor of his fallen friends. Alex is a seasoned public speaker who is eager to share the story of the origins of Project Wake Up and all he's learned about mental health, suicide, grief, bereavement, and hope during his mission to bring this film to life. We are thrilled to have these. Well, there we go. Alex, you're up.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening. My name is Alex Lindley. I am proud to be a Sigma Chi from the Xi Xi chapter, the University of Missouri in Columbia. Um, Born and raised in St. Louis, where I currently reside, and am a partner in a law firm here in town. And with that, I think I also need to lead with a disclaimer. Number one, I am not and do not purport to be an expert in the field of mental health or suicide. The best I can offer is anecdotal and experiential opinion based on this unique experience that I've lived. I'm here tonight because, in addition to the collective shared experience of spending the best years of my life being an active member of this fraternity in college, I did have to deliver two eulogies before I was a senior in college, and both to best friends, both to those who died by suicide, and neither of these individuals were people anyone would have ever thought would be battling with something so severe that they would take their own lives. It was a shock to the system. The first in 2012, it was such a shocking situation that the group of friends at Mizzou, we didn't even really talk about it. It was a friend had passed away, but we didn't really talk about why it happened. Mental health and suicide were foreign to us completely, as Michael said, something that you just hear about in TV and movies. Grieving that, 2 years later, my best friend Ryan took his own life. And Ryan was the last person I would have ever thought. After losing the first friend, I became kind of hyper aware of warning signs as much as a young college kid, layman could be. And still, I didn't see any of the signs in Ryan until hindsight. Ryan was the kind of guy that could fit in at any circle, the kind of guy that you look to for your social plans, kind of guy that you couldn't walk to class with because you'd be late because so many people would stop to say hello to him. He wasn't a Sigma Chi, but he was often over at Sigma Chi House, often invited to Sigma Chi parties, gatherings. And for those of you that can think back to especially your first years as actives, that's kind of unprecedented for somebody from another fraternity to come in and to be accepted at any point in time. An open invitation for a guy like him because he was that kind of a guy. So when he passed, it was absolutely shocking. And as Michael pointed out with Keller, there was sort of a systematic failure for Ryan as well. Ryan checked into a hospital the day that he died. He told them that he wanted to take his own life. They asked him if he had a plan. He responded no. He didn't pass their suicide risk assessment because that particular hospital in that particular year did not have access to enough psychiatric beds to turn away. So they had to turn away somebody who didn't meet that threshold. And Ryan was gone 6 hours later. So having lost two friends now to suicide, one who directly grieved the first loss and yet still wasn't able to reach out to his friends about what he was going through, and who was utterly failed by the system in getting the help that he needed. We were extremely fired up as a group of grieving kids. So I brought my friends together as a way to get ourselves through it, to kind of fight for some change on campus, to keep Ryan's memory alive. And we held our first meeting in the conference room at the Sigma Chi House, 30 kids from all over campus, Greeks, non-Greeks. And we started out on what we thought would be a cute little passion project that would maybe gain some traction at school. But what happened over the next several months was that we saw an extreme outpour of empathy and of support. And by the end of that semester, we had gained some significant traction, both from the alumni at Sigma Chi, from the campus at large, and from St. Louis community. And we realized we were really onto something. And by the end of that summer, we had created a 501c3 and were able to actually solicit serious donations to create what was then moving towards being a legitimate, full-on documentary film about the topic. And I think back to the connection that Sigma Chi made with my project and the support that they brought on. Even initially, I was invited to attend the Nationals in San Diego in 2015, right after graduating, and was there told to reach out to Michael Zibilich, who had just begun those initiatives that he'd mentioned. And I gave him a phone call a week after that and checked in with him, told him what we were doing, and let him know that this is on the horizon. Don't know how long it's going to take, but we want you to be involved in some way, shape, or form. And 3 years of significant fundraising and traveling the country to get experts in the field and politicians and stories like Ryan's to sign on to joining a group of kids, first-time filmmakers, in something as sensitive as a film about suicide. We finally accomplished that, and I was proud to reach out to Michael Zibilich then 3 years later and tell him that we're moving forward and we'd love to have Keller's story be a part of this film. So we produced the film, and then we're hit with a bit of pandemic misfortune, kind of put our festival run on hold. We were able to have our premiere in St. Louis, and Sigma Chi was gracious enough to bring out a crew with Jay Ford and Wes Holtclaw, and they covered the event and put out an article. Sigma Chi's support this whole time has been very much appreciated, and this is yet another testament to how much this fraternity cares for the issue, and it's really encouraging to see. The film was finally picked up, and now you can access it on Apple TV, on Amazon Prime, on demand. I mean, you can find that movie right now, and we are extremely proud of it. It's a full feature-length documentary film, and it has and will continue to touch a lot of lives. It's been an extremely long road for us to get. It's been 10 years now from when we set out on our mission to what we're doing now with the film. I've seen a lot of promising things, and I've seen a lot of concerning things. I see that the stigma seems to be eradicating a little bit over time and eroding, but at the same time, I see sort of a new crisis emerging with our kids. I'm 31. It's been almost 9 years to the day since I graduated, so I think I have some bit of insight and the ability to connect and relate to the present day college kid just a little bit, but I definitely recognize that that is fleeting every day, and it's hard to understand what life is like for an 18-year-old right now. But what I can gather is that it is becoming a higher anxiety group, potentially a more isolated group who has been raised with smart devices and spent more time playing games and video games with friends online than they did interacting outside. And that can only compound the stress of being alone for the first time in college and all the stresses that come with it. I think that luckily for our kids being in the fraternity setting, I think that helps combat that and those issues that are pretty novel to this generation. So I'm encouraged and hopeful that our brothers will be able to not have to deal with some of those issues, but they are certainly present. But I'm very hopeful that we can kind of impart into our kids, to the undergraduates, that mental health is a significant issue that needs to be treated the same manner as our physical health, and something that we all need to feel more comfortable openly, I want to say confronting about. If you think someone is acting out of sorts, don't be afraid to have a tough conversation with them, because a single conversation can go a long way. And I've experienced it personally on multiple occasions over the last 10 years. And there's people here who can attest to how simple a check-in can be and how far that can go. We always say, as a product of losing two of the most gregarious people we knew, to check on your strong friends, because sometimes they're the ones that you least suspect but are carrying so much. So I'm very thankful to be here tonight. Again, I'm thankful for Sigma Chi for the consistent and continuous support that they've shown throughout my process. I'm thrilled to have met Michael Zibilich through Sigma Chi, and I appreciate you all voluntarily being here. It's important to be in a discussion like this, and we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Excellent. Thank you, brothers. So both of you talked about starting the conversations. What are some of the best ways that you guys have found, realizing that you're not mental health professionals, but how do you start the conversation?
Personally, I think that you can find ways to incorporate the conversation in a non-invasive way. I glossed over the extremely laborious task of raising hundreds of thousands of dollars to make that film that we made. And we did so primarily through hosting fundraising events, golf tournaments in St. Louis. I don't know if, Andrew, if Western Illinois was akin to the trivia night in the gym, that we raise a lot of money at trivia nights here in St. Louis. It's a big fundraising tool. But I've found that you throw a fun event and you sort of ease people in with the fact, hey, we're here for a very serious topic of suicide, but we don't overwhelm them with the topic the entire time. But their presence there then makes them able, I think, to discuss those issues, more open to discuss those issues. And especially when we talk about the confronting, it's really something that people can easily look into, being able to have those tough conversations and what the experts are considering the protocol for taking those responsive actions when you see somebody that you think might be in a crisis situation. So I think it's not overwhelming someone with the topic, getting people out there to support the topic, and then inherently it sort of creates a ripple effect, and they're able to more openly discuss it, having been a participant.
How has your experience been, Michael? What do you feel might work that?
It's as far as our fraternity goes, I've been privileged to be in multiple meetings across the United States in which a speech took place, a small speech, and then been able to stay after for an actual chapter meeting. And I have been positively impressed by the ability of the young men to go around the room and express themselves pretty openly about issues that are bothering them in front of their brothers. I mean, we all know it's a very difficult thing for young males to talk about their problems, but I have seen something that it is quite encouraging to me. People have opened their hearts, they've asked for help. And I think that's the thing that when I speak, I really try to basically emphasize that you have to look for the warning signs. You have to ask somebody, are you okay? Can I help you? And in those situations in which someone has crossed the line, the night before Keller died, he had 4 people in his room, and his behavior was so distinctly uncharacteristic that several people in the room wanted to literally call 911. Others in the room felt this can't be happening to Keller. He's always the strongest. He's always the leader. And they didn't make the call. So I use that as an example. It is much better to risk even a friendship. If you see someone in real need, try to get directly involved, try to get them to help immediately. And and I think that's what we've got to transmit that to our members, and we can do that, by the way. We can do that in meetings. We can do that in having speakers come to individual chapters, etc.
Excellent. Is there anything that, I mean, obviously you have to do something when you see these. Is there something other than not doing anything? Are there other things that you don't want to do or say that?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that what I've learned, and from what the experts will tell you, uh, we need to get right to the point with someone that's experiencing, high anxiety or depression, and ask them the absolute direct question: Are you okay? Are you thinking? You can use the word suicide. Are you thinking of harming yourself? Are you thinking of taking your life? At a certain level, you've got to move to that level in order to get help. It would have literally saved Keller's life. And I'm not blaming anybody that was in that room. That's not the point at all. But, sometimes that action has absolutely got to be taken. And I guess candor is the biggest thing that I can say. Ask the question, listen to the answer. And if it's something that does not make you feel well, try to help them directly by bringing them the help, or getting someone else to help them.
Excellent. Alex, do you have anything to add on that?
I think that's spot on, Michael.
Michael, with your work on college campuses, what themes and trends are you noticing amongst today's college students surrounding mental health? And I would probably throw that probably the COVID has changed a little bit too, along with what Alex talked about earlier with social media and the mobile devices.
Well, Alex brought it up a little bit earlier, and when I'm doing a full-blown speech, I talk about it. I mean, smartphone has become completely, pervasive now. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It has invaded every aspect of our life. It is ironically cut down on what I would call meaningful communication. COVID isolated us. The phone isolated us even more. I'm not here to demonize this instrument. I have mine sitting right next to me right at this moment. I use it everything from navigating to calling friends to seeking information. So we can't put the phone out of business. It is here to stay. But it is something that we've got to encourage more face-to-face interface rather than with the phone. These kids are, Alex again mentioned this earlier, they're getting more and more isolated on everyday interaction. Now, in the case of Keller, this wasn't the case, but in many instances, people are just shut off completely, not completely, but significantly from contact, in which if they were not feeling absolutely up to par, someone could discover.
Yeah. What about you as you talk to younger people, Alex? What are you seeing? Anything others specifically, or have you been back to your own chapter? And
our chapter is in the middle of a recolonization at this point. I'm looking forward to getting the opportunity to bring the film to them shortly, hopefully. But just to piggyback off of Michael's point, we cannot underestimate the severity of these new environments and stressors that our young people are dealing with, especially having come from the pandemic and the total virtual world. I spoke with a student after I spoke a couple years ago, and one of the things that they mentioned about this discussion of feeling isolated and not having that face-to-face interaction is a total anxiety that would fall over their bodies when a phone call would come in, that they would prefer to text or email somebody and not even have a phone conversation, not a face-to-face conversation, a phone call. I think that that needs to be something that we can fix. And I think that starts with the use of these smartphones. It's an isolated situation that these kids have been raised in recently. They've had phones. They've had the iPhone since they're little kids. I was right on the cusp. I had a flip phone up until high school. I saw that thing come on, and now it's basically an extension of ourselves. Um, but I think that even beyond the social or the isolation is the social evolution of these smartphones and social media as well, and the need for this perfect image to be displayed on Instagram or whatever the kids are using these days. All the filters and only showing really their best moments, and seeing others live their lives through this lens that life is so grandiose, and maybe my life isn't as good as this guy's life, but I think we just need to be more real and open with that if we're going to live in this world, because I think it has to be having a detrimental effect on our kids' self-esteem and mental health as a whole.
Yeah, being vulnerable is a very important thing for everyone. Um, how can individuals support the efforts of organizations like Project Wake Up and Active Minds in promoting mental health and awareness beyond Mental Health Awareness Month?
Well, thank you for the question very much. As far as Active Minds goes, which I've been a speaker for them for about 5 or 6 years. They do an absolutely phenomenal job on campuses around the United States. They're in almost 1,000 campuses. Almost on every campus, every year there is a Walk Out of Darkness walk, which I've led multiple of those, throughout the Southeast United States. It's a great organization. It's a student organization, which is wonderful, that is supported by a tremendous headquarters organization. So people can get involved on their own campuses. They have an opportunity to do proactive work. They have an opportunity to bring attention to it. There's always a lot of publicity associated with it. I have seen, particularly in the last 5 years, going back to the same school, whether it be an Auburn or an Ole Miss or an Alabama, where the crowds have increased significantly over time because of the action of Active Minds and students joining it and playing a role in this. It's been very, very, very encouraging. So, whether it's Active Minds or another organization, I think there's plenty access now to people. These organizations didn't exist 10 to 12 years ago. They just didn't, to the extent that they do now. So I think there's a structure now in which people can get help, feel supported, and get the professional expertise that they need to make a difference.
Alex, do you have anything to add there?
I'd echo Michael on Active Minds. I'm amazed by the work they do and the reach they have. They are without a doubt the number one mental health organization for college campuses. I encourage anyone watching who is an undergraduate to check out your local chapter. If there isn't one, see about starting one. In terms of Project Wake Up, we're happy to put on a screening anywhere. I think you can rent the movie for $1, $2, put it on for your chapters. We would highly encourage you to watch that film. It's incredibly hopeful, and it's something that can ease you into a conversation.
You said that's on Apple TV?
Apple TV, Amazon. You can find it anywhere.
You can find it. So go ahead, Michael.
No, I just wanted to add just one little period. The work of Alex and the young people at the University of Missouri has been absolutely extraordinary. I have never seen a bunch of young people that have taken something from a very embryonic position, stayed with it week after week, month after month, year after year, and frankly produced something that I frankly think is unbelievable. And Alex used the word hopeful. It's hard to sit here having lost your only child, a kid that you love beyond belief, and talk about a movie in which he is one of the main feature stories as being a hopeful movie, but it is. It brings it right to you personally. You get to see the people affected by this. You get to see the survivors affected by this. And yet at the same time, it brings hope, hope through education, hope through awareness, but most importantly, most importantly, hope through action. So this film does all of this. And these young people, the men and women of Wake Up that did this, my hat's off. I'm just telling you, it's an incredible film, and I encourage anybody that has an opportunity to look at it, to really see it. It can make a difference in your life, somebody you know, somebody you love.
Michael, what strategies have you found most effective for engaging fraternity sorority members in conversations about mental health and destigmatizing seeking help?
Well, I think that the thing that most amazed me in this entire process, and what I try to, when I have an opportunity to have a long, dedicated speech to it, is that I was stunned that suicide can happen to well-adjusted people as well as deeply troubled. I was stunned to find out that suicide can happen to reserved people or gregarious people. I was surprised that it could happen to rich or poor. It has no race, no creed, no gender. And it stunned me that a perfectly normal human being can have a emotional reaction of such intensity, even to an extremely strong person, which I would consider our son very, very strong. And that particular event overwhelmed them just like a riptide at the beach, a great swimmer being drowned. So one of the things when I speak, Keller's picture is constantly rotating behind me on a movie screen in which that you see the face of suicide. The face of suicide isn't a contorted face. It is not an ugly face. It's a great young man. It's a great young woman. They're fun. They're healthy. They're physically fit. They do things that if this can happen to someone that's well adjusted, who's had a couple of very rough situations happen, it can happen to you. So we try to utilize the prism of Keller's life, that this is a normal guy that this can happen to. I think people, and I know this from the people that come up after me, who are amazed, how could this happen? So I think that's the prism that you try to do, that this can happen to normal people.
Alex, we talked about just the gregarious, the outgoing, the normally happy person is unlikely, is a misconception. What are some of the other misconceptions out there that you'd encounter in your work, and how do you address them?
I think one of the things that sticks out to me is the common misconception that somebody who takes their life is selfish. A lot of times, those who take their own lives are under the mistaken belief, sometimes a distortion, that they're doing everybody else a favor, that they think that they're a burden on the world, and it's usually a totally wrong misconception on their part to think that they're burdensome. That was the biggest light bulb for me. It helped me with my personal grieving, feeling every emotion under the sun after losing a second friend, and feeling anger towards my friend at some point in time for thinking, how could you have done this after already grieving one friend? But that is it's an absurd thought for it's a normal thought to have, but when you really think about what's going through the mind of the individual that actually goes through with something like that, they are certainly not thinking of hurting you or the ramifications of that. They're thinking that they will be less of a burden on the world and less of a burden on you. So that was the biggest one for me that kind of clicked.
Michael, what have you found as far as misconceptions?
Well, Alex has alluded to several of them, that that you're selfish or weak, that you are unable to cope with life, that this is something that is so contrary to the and one of the things that, and I'm going a little bit far afield here. I've had the privilege in doing this for so many years is to talk to many high-end professional people that have had their suicides either interrupted or they've survived them, and to try to get some insight into what exactly happens to them at that particular moment. And it's been stunning to me that what happens is this broad view of existence can be mowed down to just one little pinprick, and that pain is so intense that it distorts their reasoning ability for that particular moment and allows them to lose touch as to where their equilibrium is. And again, I'm back to what I said earlier. We always thought it was the weak, the selfish, the ones that can't go on that are going to be affected by this. But from the people that I've spoken to in life and from viewing my own son, that is not the case. And you've got to be able to tell that message to people, to be vigilant, to watch out for extreme emotional distress, depression, anxiety, and to ask for help if you need it.
Gotcha. So I'll put this one to you, Alex. So if a brother or friend has been in that bad place but then got the help that they needed and were able to stop that, how do we re-engage with them? Or things like, do they try again, or how do we make them feel comfortable, or what can we do as brothers or friends or family to help?
I think just don't be afraid to continue to check in. It seems so easy, but obviously all of us know that it's harder and harder as we get older and with our careers to stay in touch and to continually check in with folks. But if you've recognized someone who has fortunately reached out for help and even gotten it, it certainly is not a quick one-time Band-Aid. It's an ongoing condition, an ongoing issue that deserves attention, and I think just compassionately check in. And that goes a long way.
Gotcha. What about for an alumnus, just a general alumnus working with a undergraduate chapter or alumni in general? They want to talk to the younger generation about mental health. What kind of tips or concepts or phrases how do they start those conversations?
I would recommend using a resource that's out there, whether it's a film like ours or a speaker like Michael, some liaison through an on-campus organization like Active Minds. Having an event like that to open up those discussions would be what I would suggest, rather than kind of having that cold conversation, especially with the freshmen who you haven't had the chance to build that relationship with yet. I think having that event tailored to it is a great way to have open discussions. And some of the most memorable times in the fraternity for me were those intimate chapter settings where we would open up about our lives and get to know each other better. And I think that there's plenty of opportunities in Sigma Chi to have those tough conversations and really to grow and bond from them. And that'll make it a lot easier to follow up.
Andrew, I would like to reiterate what Alex said. Again, I've been privileged by having the opportunity in multiple chapters throughout the country to be with alums at many of these meetings. And their very presence there and their openness about talking about it and encouraging the brothers to talk about their problems in front of each other or to ask for help have been quite encouraging. So I've seen a very, in the chapters that I've been involved in, a real significant change in access and being there for the young men. And I think that's to be encouraged by, I know these guys give selflessly in so many ways to help us all out, but they're doing, a lot of them are doing a wonderful job. And I think we need to encourage them to do that. And again, I'm not suggesting they be mental health advisors, psychologists, or psychiatrists, but just being there and asking the question, are you okay? Can I help you with anything? Is the absolute first step. It would, it can make a difference.
Yeah. We talked about technology and how it can be, the isolation and some of those. But what about, is there technology there's a role for it that could help, advanced mental health awareness, support, or online communities, resources? Is there a role for that?
Absolutely. And it's encouraging. I think given my background and exposure to it, sometimes you get targeted on social media with a lot of things that you're looking into. Maybe that's the case, but I see a lot of positive mental health awareness on social media all the time. Moreover, I think that the availability of online therapy is something that cannot possibly be understated, how amazing that is to have that access. When we were around in college in 2012, 2013, 2014, even if you were willing to get over the hurdle of that stigma, a lot of times it would be extremely difficult to get the help that you were willing to seek, weeks at a time, months at a time. So having that available, whether it's BetterHelp or one of those online apps, I think that's incredible that we have that, and it's something that we could get behind as a fraternity, even if we aren't already.
Andrew, just one brief remark in that we have been doing our annual selection of Keller scholarships and interviewing young men from the universities in the southern region. And in the course of those interviews that happened a couple of 3 days ago, two of the young men that we were speaking to brought up the Strong Arms educational program that all freshman pledges are required to take. And that was quite encouraging to me. So they knew about Keller before the scholarship. They were aware of it so that it had touched them. So, in conjunction with what we got to do on site, I think we're doing something pretty significant in giving them access to something that they can utilize as a resource that might really generally help them. And I think it would have helped Keller. There's no question about it.
Excellent. Well, brothers, I want to thank you for participation in tonight's webinar. This is a challenging topic, but it's a very important message. You've provided such valuable insights and inspiration for our listeners and viewers. The gathering serves as a testament to the enduring bonds of brotherhood and powerful network that this fraternity fosters. Thank you for your time tonight, brothers.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. God bless you.
We want to remind all of our viewers about the Sigma Chi Reach Out app, which provides anonymous 24/7 access to local and national resources like helplines and counseling service. This is available to anyone, not just members. We also want to remind our viewers that Sigma Chi is partnered with BetterHelp to provide their members and their loved ones with the assistance in finding licensed therapists. Please see the links on screen or in the comments for more information. If you've enjoyed this panel, please share the Signature Speakers event with your friends and fellow Sigma Chi brothers, as well as anyone who values stories of leadership, ambition, and the enduring power of brotherhood. Remember, the bonds formed through Sigma Chi are not just for 4 years, but for a lifetime, and they continue to shape the lives of our brothers in remarkable ways. We encourage you to visit the Sigma Chi Learning Consortium at any time to watch all of our previously recorded content and register for our upcoming live events. Thank you all for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.